To Justin there. So that's the situation on the trains, but there are reports that other workers, including teachers, barristers, NHS staff, are also looking at their pay and conditions because of the inflation, because of the economy, because everyone needs a bit of a boost at the moment. Let's speak to Paul McLaughlin at the National Education Union for the Eastern Region. Paul, very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Paul, welcome to the programme. I think the challenge here for everybody in work is how to keep up the race with inflation.
Yeah, I mean, it's very difficult. Clearly, the economy is in a very dark place, really. Our members in education, I represent members in the education field, and particularly teachers have experienced, by our calculations, a real terms pay cut since 2010 of a fifth. So the wages, prior to the recent events, the wages have been taking a hit, and they took a pay freeze in 2021 where they got 0% increase. So there's even if we didn't have an inflation problem, we've got a pay problem in the education sector, and we're hoping that the government will address it properly and not blame the workers for the mess that they're in.
What about the argument that striking is not the answer and it's never the right time? And look, we know inflation is running at 9%, possibly in real terms running in double digits. So we're all under the cosh here. But how does anyone justify strike action, industrial action?
Well, ultimately, I mean, our members don't want to take action. They would only do so very reluctantly. As with many other public service workers, they kept the flame burning during the difficult times, the height of the pandemic and all. So they're very committed to their work. But equally, there comes a point where members, people have to get a decent pay rise, and ultimately the last lever that we would have would be strike action.
Because, I mean, I don't know what your union is asking for, but all unions, if all workers, of course, unless you get 11%, I mean, 9% is the current rate of inflation, although it's expected to be higher, double digit. Yeah. Unless you get at least a 10% pay rise, anything less than that is a pay cut, another pay cut.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is the thing. I mean, the inflation is due to come out, as you say, and we're writing to the Secretary of State for Education when those figures are released with our proposals. And frankly, the government found money to bail out the banks, nationalise the banks. The government found money, I don't know where they found that money from. They also found money to renationalise parts of the rail franchises when they got in a mess. I don't know where they found that money from. They also found money to pay vast PPE contracts that went south. I don't know where they got that money from. So they do need to find money for the workers as well as the people who seem to be beneficiaries of their finances.
And Paul, when your members look at the rail workers, they have a very strong, a number of unions, but they are very strong unions, of course. Does that inspire? Because you think, hang on, if the rail workers can be that strident, then maybe we should follow in their footsteps.
I mean, my feeling is that members in any unions and in any profession can be strong if they feel deeply that an injustice is happening to them, that things are unjust. And thousands of members of were marching on Saturday in London across the piece. So I don't necessarily think it's a matter of strong this or weak that. I think that where there's a cause, where there's a just cause, then members will rise to that and will seek to address it. And that's what we hope that the government will take heed of and actually come, particularly for the members I represent, obviously others as well, but for the members we represent, they will come back to the government, the pay review body, with a sensible proposal. We don't want to be taking any action, but we do want to be properly rewarded for the work that we do.
Is that one way of looking at it? I mean, should it be an independent body that looks at pay in all industries, a bit like the MPs, because their independent body always gives them a pay rise, come hell or high water? Yeah. Is that how it should work? And I know the police tried this a few years ago, Paul. The police tried this. They went to an independent body, and the independent body said the police should get a certain pay rise, and then the Home Secretary said, "No, I'm not doing that." Anyway, I just wonder where we go with this.
Well, indeed. I think we'd all like the MPs' independent pay body because, as you say, whatever they ask for, they seem to get, right? It was ever thus. But in terms of there is a pay review body for teachers' pay it is independent in inverted commas in the sense that the government set its remit. So, to the extent that it's independent in that sense, they're already giving them a script. And then, as you say, when those recommendations come back, if the government doesn't like what they hear, they say no. So if something was a truly independent pay body, if the government was prepared to commit to funding whatever those pay bodies come up with, then, we would have that conversation. But we know that it's the government that put the money in at the end of the day. So really, it's the money, the government.
Well, taxpayers, it's taxpayers' money.
Well, indeed.
Can I ask you, Paul, one of the government is counteracting this strike action by saying it will change the law to allow companies, employers to use agency staff to fill the roles of striking workers. And suggestions are that this could come into force next month because they claim unions are threatening actions across the economy. The idea of bringing in agency staff, a few months ago, when P&O did this, the government thought it was dreadful action. Now this is exactly what they're doing. But are there enough agency staff to fill the roles if the teachers went on strike?
Well, I mean, there's things that baffle me about what the government come out with. That's one of them. I mean, the idea that, we all know from experiences in the height of the pandemic that teaching is not something you can just do, without any proper training and all the rest of it. So obviously there aren't sufficient professional colleagues to do that, nor would they want to do that necessarily to try and break a strike or something like that. So I'm not clear on the detail that obviously you're mentioning, and frankly, some of the recent announcements from the government, they don't necessarily last till lunchtime, never mind the whole day or get through Parliament. So I'd wait and see the detail of that before I'd be able to comment fully, but it doesn't sound like a very wise idea.
Paul, thank you for joining us. Paul McLaughlin, the National Education Union from the National Education Union for the Eastern Region. So, by the way, it's just been confirmed the rail strike is going ahead tomorrow. Last-ditch talks that weren't intervened upon by Grant Shapps, the Transport Secretary, will happen. So this thing is going to happen.